Clara had never been inside a place like this before. The marble floors gleamed like still water, chandeliers spilled golden light across polished wood, and the air smelled faintly of roses and money. Everywhere she looked, people moved with an ease that spoke of long familiarity with luxury. For Clara, who had grown up counting coins before every grocery trip, it was both dazzling and disorienting. She was here for a reason. A 3-day business conference that promised valuable connections and insights. This was her chance to prove to herself, and maybe to others, that she could stand in the same room as industry leaders and not feel small. But she had no idea that by the end of the first day, she wouldn't just feel small, she'd feel invisible. It happened in the blink of an eye. She was waiting for tea in the hotel lobby when a man strode up, pressed a pair of towels into her hands, and asked her to take them upstairs. He thought she worked there. The sting of that moment burrowed deep. But the real story isn't just about the misunderstanding. It's about what happened next. Because the very next morning, Clara's life collided with someone she never expected to meet. A billionaire whose entrance into her story would rewrite it completely. And before I take you there, I need you to do something. Because what you're about to hear is proof that one small, awkward moment can lead to an extraordinary twist. So hit that like button, subscribe, and stay until the very end. This isn't just a story about chance. It's a story about recognizing an opportunity when it's standing right in front of you. Clara had been looking forward to this business conference for months. For a mid-level marketing consultant from a modest background, the chance to attend an event at one of the city's most prestigious hotels felt like stepping into another world. She'd saved for the ticket, planned her outfits carefully, and told herself she'd network with confidence. Maybe even meet someone who could open new doors for her. But from the moment she walked through the gleaming glass entrance that first morning, the energy felt intimidating. The lobby was a swirl of tailored suits, designer handbags, and conversations laced with industry jargon. Everyone seemed to know someone. Everyone seemed to belong. Clara didn't. She told herself she could fake confidence, but it was harder than she imagined. During the first networking break, she tried to join a small group in conversation, only for someone to glance at her name badge, murmur a polite greeting, and turn back to the others without missing a beat. Twice, she approached the coffee table only to find it surrounded by people deep in conversation, their laughter like an invisible fence keeping her out. By the afternoon, she'd found a quiet corner to catch her breath. That's when it happened. She was standing near the service counter in the lobby, waiting for a refill of tea, when a guest in a crisp white shirt strode up to her holding a pair of towels. Without hesitation, he handed them to her and said, "Can you take these up to room 702? Clara froze. "Oh, I think." "Thanks," he said, already walking away. It took her a second to realize he thought she worked there. Her simple navy dress, practical flats, and no-name handbag must have looked enough like the staff uniform to blur the line. She stood there, towels in hand, cheeks burning. A few people nearby glanced at her before quickly looking away. The moment felt small, but the humiliation clung to her skin. She put the towels down on the counter, mumbled something to the attendant, and hurried back toward the conference room, telling herself to brush it off. But she couldn't. For the rest of the day, her confidence shrank. She barely spoke during sessions, avoided eye contact during breaks, and sat toward the back of the room, convinced that she stuck out. Not for her skills or potential, but for looking like she didn't belong. That night, back in her small hotel room, she stared at her reflection in the mirror. She wasn't angry at the man who'd mistaken her for staff. She was angry at how much it had rattled her. She had worked too hard to let a moment like that define her. Still, the question lingered. What if everyone here saw her the same way? She didn't know it yet, but the next morning would bring the encounter that would shatter that feeling and change everything. By the second evening of the conference, Clara had decided to let the mistaken identity incident fade into the background. She had worn her best outfit, a deep green dress that made her feel confident, and was determined to focus on networking. The hotel's ballroom was alive with chatter, clinking glasses, and the subtle hum of a jazz quartet in the corner. Clara stood near one of the high tables, jotting down notes from the day's sessions in her small leather notebook, when she noticed a sudden shift in the room's energy. Conversations lowered to murmurs. Heads turned toward the entrance. A tall man in a perfectly tailored navy suit walked in, flanked by two associates. He carried himself with the unbothered grace of someone used to being the center of attention, but there was nothing arrogant about it. His eyes scanned the room with quiet interest, as though he was looking for something, or someone. Clara recognized him instantly. Daniel Whitmore, billionaire investor. A man whose name regularly appeared in financial headlines, known not just for his wealth but for his almost uncanny ability to turn struggling businesses into global successes. She wasn't the only one who noticed him. People gravitated toward him in slow, almost reverent waves, each hoping to secure a handshake or a few words. Clara told herself to stay put. She didn't want to seem like just another eager face in the crowd. But then something strange happened. Daniel's gaze landed on her. It wasn't the casual glance of someone scanning the room. It was deliberate, measured. He started walking in her direction. The chatter around her seemed to fade into silence. When he reached her table, he smiled. The kind of smile that felt like he had already decided she was worth talking to. "You're the one with the towels," he said, a spark of humor in his voice. Clara froze, her cheeks burning as the memory of yesterday's awkward moment came rushing back. But before she could stammer out an apology or explanation, he set his drink down and added, "I think you might be exactly the person I need to talk to tonight." Clara blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. The person he needed to talk to? Daniel pulled up a chair without waiting for an invitation. "Yesterday," he began, "I saw how you handled that situation in the lobby. You could have snapped, could have embarrassed that man for his mistake. But you didn't. You kept your composure. That says more about someone than most resumes ever will." Clara gave a small, self-conscious laugh. "I didn't think anyone was watching." "People always are," he replied. "The question is, what do they see?" They spoke for nearly half an hour. Daniel wasn't interested in her job title or how polished her elevator pitch was. He wanted to know how she thought. The questions he asked went beyond business. What's the most difficult decision you've ever had to make? If you had unlimited resources, what problem would you solve first? What's your definition of success? Clara answered honestly, resisting the urge to give perfect replies. And somewhere between describing the time she had to let go of a project she loved because it was draining her team, and her dream of creating affordable leadership programs for women in underserved communities, she noticed his expression shift from curious to impressed. By the time dessert was served, Daniel leaned back in his chair and said, "I'm hosting a closed-door strategy session tomorrow morning. Small group. Just 6 people. I think you should be there." Clara almost dropped her fork. Are you sure? I mean, I'm not exactly." "Exactly what?" he interrupted gently. "One of the people on the list. Sometimes lists need to change." The next morning, Clara found herself in a sleek conference room with panoramic views of the city. Around the table sat industry leaders she had only ever read about. Daniel introduced her simply. "This is Clara. She has a perspective worth hearing." At first, she spoke cautiously, but as the discussion unfolded, she realized she had more to contribute than she thought. Her ideas sparked debate. Her observations reframed problems in ways that made even the most seasoned executives pause. And when the session ended, 2 people slipped her their cards, telling her to stay in touch. For the rest of the conference, it was as if the air around her had changed. She was no longer just an attendee blending into the crowd. People sought her out. Conversations opened doors she hadn't even known existed. Clara went home with more than just contacts. She went home with momentum. The kind of momentum that could change the trajectory of a career. And all of it had started because someone mistook her for hotel staff. And a billionaire decided to watch how she handled it. 2 weeks after the conference, Clara's phone buzzed with an email that made her heart race. It was from Daniel's assistant, inviting her to present some of her ideas to his advisory team. This wasn't just a meeting, it was the kind of opportunity that could define her next decade. She poured herself into preparation. Late nights bled into early mornings as she refined slides, rehearsed transitions, and double-checked every fact. By the time she boarded her flight to New York, she had memorized every line. She was ready. But the moment she stepped off the plane, everything began to unravel. Her checked luggage, containing her laptop, notes, and presentation backup, never arrived. Airline staff offered polite apologies and a flimsy claim ticket, but no timeline. She tried to keep her composure, telling herself she could adapt. She'd saved a copy of her presentation in the cloud, after all. But when she opened her email at the hotel, the file wouldn't load. The Wi-Fi was spotty at best, and her phone battery was draining faster than she could find an outlet. The next morning, she stood outside the sleek glass doors of Daniel's office building, feeling the weight of her unpreparedness. Her mind spun with worst-case scenarios. If I blow this, I'll never get another chance. Inside, the boardroom felt colder than she remembered. Faces that had once been curious now seemed distracted. Clara stumbled through her opening, words tripping over each other. Her normally steady voice wavered. She could see Daniel watching quietly from the end of the table. Not judging, exactly, but not intervening either. When the meeting ended, polite handshakes replaced the eager exchanges she'd experienced at the conference. The warmth she'd felt 2 weeks earlier had vanished, replaced by a hollow ache in her chest. As she walked back out into the busy Manhattan streets, she wondered if the momentum she'd built had slipped through her fingers in the span of a single morning. Clara didn't hear from Daniel's team for days. Each morning, she refreshed her inbox, hoping for a second chance, but nothing came. The silence was worse than rejection. It felt like she had simply faded from their memory. One evening, she sat at her kitchen table, the same place where she'd first dreamed of something bigger. The sting of that failed meeting was still fresh, but somewhere beneath the disappointment was a quiet, stubborn voice telling her it wasn't over. Instead of retreating, Clara got to work. She rebuilt her presentation from memory, refined it, and turned it into a short video pitch. It wasn't for Daniel this time. It was for her. Something she could share with anyone, anywhere. She began sending it out to smaller hotels, independent investors, and even boutique travel companies. One of those emails landed in the inbox of a luxury eco-resort owner in Costa Rica. He was intrigued. Within a month, Clara was on a flight south, walking through lush gardens and oceanfront villas, negotiating a partnership that would triple her reach. Weeks later, while scrolling through her messages, Clara saw Daniel's name pop up again. His email was short. "I saw what you did in Costa Rica. Let's talk." It wasn't the same wide-open door she'd imagined before, but it was proof that her value hadn't vanished. It had only shifted. Clara realized something powerful. Sometimes, the big break you think you need is just a spark. What matters most is what you do after the flame flickers. Her story became a quiet legend among her friends, not about luck or chance encounters, but about resilience, adaptability, and refusing to let one bad day define an entire future. And if you're watching this right now, maybe that's the reminder you need. The next opportunity might not look like you expect, but it's coming, and when it does, make sure you're ready. So, if Clara's story inspired you, hit that like button, share this with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe for more powerful stories that might just change how you see your own journey. Your breakthrough could be closer than you think. Don't miss it.